Now that we know a little bit about image resizing, we're going to dig a bit deeper and work with this photograph. And here we're going to focus in on how we can resize an image appropriately when we need to change the image resolution. Now, a quick word of warning, this topic can be a little bit confusing, so this may be one of those movies that you want to watch a couple of times to make sure you really learn all of this content. All right, well, before we begin, I want to turn on this layer group that I have. Inside of this layer group, I have some instructions that we're going to follow. These will act as a guide for us. Let me zoom in on the image so that we can go through these a little bit better. When it comes to changing resolution, as you'll see in a minute, we're going to follow these 4 steps. The first step is to turn resample off. Second step, change our res. Third step, resample on. Fourth is to resize. So we'll do this. I just wanted to provide a little bit of a cheat sheet so that you know where we're going. Well, with this photograph of a couple of my friends right after they got married, I want to deliver them a 5x7-inch print. So let's go ahead and go to our image size dialog. To do that, we'll go up to image, and here we're going to choose image size. In this image size dialog, we want to make sure we're viewing the right area of the photograph. Now, in order to create this print, I need to change my resolution. Here you can see currently the image is 9x13.5. And sometimes I like to take the dimensions there to inches so we can see that there as well. And before I get carried away with changing this, though, I need to think of those 4 steps. Do you remember what step number 1 was? It was resample goes off. The reason why we want to do that is first thing we want to do is get the correct resolution before we get rid of any pixels. So this will enable us to make a change here. Here I'll go to 300. Notice how it hasn't changed my image sizes at all as long as resample is turned off. So first step, resample off. Second step, change the resolution. Third step, turn resample back on. Fourth step is to do our final resizing. So now that we've gone through the steps, we can go here and say, hey, you know what? I need to print this as a 5x7. So I'll type in the field 5. I get 5x7.5 at 300 pixels per inch. So I'm close. I'm looking at the image. The details here look great. It's fun to see their smiling faces. I have a problem, right? I don't want 5x7.5. I want 5x7. So what if I type in 7 here? Well, now it's 4.6 by 7. So in order to make the final resizing adjustment, I'm going to need to go into Photoshop and work with the crop tool. So we did everything that we can do here. We worked with our resolution. Then we did our resizing. So with the image size dialog, we're good to go. We click OK. Now that we've finished those steps, the final step is going to be to work with the crop tool. You can resize images with the crop tool. Just select it. It's over here in the Tools panel. Now, currently, by default, it says ratio, which isn't what we want. We want width by height by resolution. We'll choose that option, and we'll see a few different fields here. What I want to do is type 5 IN for inches by 7 IN for inches. What resolution? 300 pixels per inch. Now that I've added all of those values, you can see it's showing me how the image can be cropped in order to achieve that. I'm going to click and drag this down a little bit. And while we haven't talked about cropping, it's pretty straightforward. It's just a matter of clicking and dragging to reposition it. Now, I want to be careful that I'm not resizing the crop handles in any way, shape, or form, because remember, we want it to be as close to what we had. We're just sort of trimming off that extra 1/2 inch that you can see grayed out right up there. Now, one way to apply a crop is to click on the check mark. So I'll click on the check mark. I'll zoom back in on the image so we can see all the wonderful details we have here. And at this point in our workflow, we want to double check. We want to make sure the image size is right. One way to do that is to go to the image pull-down menu, then choose image size. Here in this image size dialog, we're seeing we have a 9 meg file. We can look at the dimensions here, 5x7, 300 pixels per inch. That is perfect. That is exactly what the lab needs, or that's exactly what I need in order to be able to print this image and send it off to them. So we've gone through all of our image sizing and we have accomplished the task at hand. Once we've made sure we've done that, we can just click cancel because really we're just using this window to double check our progress. Now you may be wondering, well, Chris, why didn't you start off with the crop tool in the beginning? Well, what I find is that when people do that, they tend to make more mistakes because you can crop in really dramatic ways. To ensure that the image looks its best, it typically works better. Start with the image size dialog and then trim off any needed excess, just like we did there with the crop tool. Now, remember my warning at the beginning of this movie. I said this one is a little bit complicated. There are a number of steps. That's why I showed you those steps right here. First was resample off. Second, change that resolution. Third one, resample goes on. And then the fourth one was to resize. And in this case, we resized in the image size dialog. Then we finish off the project by using the crop tool. Now, with all of those steps, if you're feeling like, hey, I didn't quite get all of that, go back, watch this one again, and then try this with one of your own images. And I find that once you've seen how it works and then tested it out with one of your own files, it will really help you to make sure you have this. And this is one of those skills you want to learn now when you're not under the gun or under the pressure to resize something correctly so that you can then use it later when the need surfaces.